You know, for my whole life, I've hated talking in front of people.
Yeah.
And I've had to do it in sales and running companies and stuff. But we were in this little village somewhere in some third world country. Belize. And we were with Pastor Danny, and he said, "All right, you've got 5 minutes. We're going to ask you to speak for 5 or 10 minutes at the end of the service." And it just destroyed my whole body. There was no running water. There's no facilities.
There's no outward.
And my stomach got so bad I was in the outhouse with no electricity and no light, like 2 or 3 times.
And it was dark.
Yeah.
So I just overly stressed myself out. And then the service was, do you have any, let's get rid of stuff. And one of them was get rid of fears. And I've always had fear of talking in front of people and fear of heights. Like I would almost black out going across the big overpasses. Driving. I hate tunnel vision. Because it makes me that nervous. And I haven't always been that way. It's just kind of the way lately. There's certain crazy things I can do, like jump out of an airplane that bother me, but going over overpasses and stuff. So ever since we prayed and we said, all right, God, this is what we want in life, cast it out and make me strong. If your will is to have me talk in front of people, make it easy so I'm not miserable in front of them.
Yeah.
And ever since that day, I've been a lot better at that. And then my fear of heights is probably 60 or 80%. I can drive over the overpass.
Drive over the overpass without blacking out. That's good.
But he walks like this before we get home, good.
That's fair.
I mean, I'm the same way, so.
That was BP. That was before the prayer.
BP.
I'm good now.
Paris, France.
She's confessing her sins before your fault.
I've got a good picture of me standing on the edge of the Eiffel Tower, tip top. But if you hold down on it, this is that live one. It shows like 3 seconds before.
Yeah.
And I'm crawling to the edge.
He couldn't.
That's funny. Yeah, we did the what used to be the Sears Tower in Chicago, and you can step out over the edge. They've got a spot, and you're like standing on plexiglass and looking down. I'll tell you, it was one of the greatest moments of my life watching other people because they're terrified, and it was mainly the dudes that were scared. Like they would be like, because you only get 60 seconds. That you got for 60 seconds, take your pictures, and then come because there's so many people. And watch. I could sit up there all day and watch people. That would be the best job ever because they're terrified, and it's a blast.
We did that in Spain.
You would enjoy going with bands on high.
Get
We're in Spain on this super tallest building.
Same thing.
It has a glass walkway, probably from this chair to the end of that chair. And you go up one way, you have to walk across it to come down the other way, right? Never been watching you taking pictures.
Yeah.
But like 8 out of 10 people are perfectly fine. They go up there, they take a picture, they're holding a kid, nobody cares. Stacy walks across, and I've got to walk across the same where I can get out of there. And it was tough. I did.
Come on, Terrence.
Well, back to a spiritual thing. I'm gonna add to your ChatGPT Joseph interpretation on the tunnel thing, because one of the things, and I know you already know this, but I'm just gonna what the Lord uses you for is to connect people and things, and I think that He's continuing to do that. Like He brings you in this circle and that circle, and then brings them together, and so it's a true gift. And it is that underground that people don't see. And I think that's why the Lord is able to bless you guys, is because y'all haven't worried about getting the attention of it. And it's the faithfulness of God. So I just want to honor you in that, because it's not common. Most people want to be known for what they do. Yeah, I appreciate y'all. And I'm glad we do this. And I know we're going to grow and things are going to change and shift. And so I'm excited about it. It's funny, last night, Andy spoke. I told you guys Andy spoke. And he talked about Joseph. And I was like, you're stealing my thunder, bro. And that's my story is Joseph. But he was talking about, he had a dream. So I'm going to share it, and then I'm going to get into what we're talking about. He had a dream as well. And he's the same thing. He said, I don't dream very often. And he had a dream. And he was talking about forgiveness. And in his dream, he was on like a little walkway that's kind of like the marquee floor, the wood marquee floor. He said it was narrow and it would go up and then it would turn and it would go up and then it would turn, and kind of like almost like a spiral staircase, but it was flat. And he said he was wearing socks. And you've been on that kind of floor on socks, you can't get anywhere. And he said it was him and like a few other guys. He said some businessmen and stuff. And he said, we're trying to get up this and we're all like going and we're falling and we're going and we're falling. And he said, finally, I realized I need to take my socks off. So he takes his socks off and he says, now I've got traction. And he said he turned around to these other guys. He said, look, take your socks off and you'll get up this a lot easier. And he said, a lot of them were like, no, I'm not taking my socks off, man. I'm just not doing it. He said one guy took one sock off, so he was getting a little bit of traction, but he wasn't making it. He says, I was like helping pull him up to the next level. He said, but then it got so steep that I couldn't help him anymore. I could only get myself up there. And he said the Lord spoke to him in it that the socks were unforgiveness. And that we get comfortable in it and we walk through our lives, but we never ascend to where the Lord wants us to get to because we're holding on to our unforgiveness. And we've got to take our socks off. And so he shared about that last night, of course, talking about how Joseph was able to kind of navigate those things. And I think it's really, it's very real about, just whether it's unforgiveness or just getting caught in ourselves and our weaknesses and our whether it's a phobia or just something that wraps us up, that we can step beyond it and go, okay, Lord, what is your purpose in it? And I think, as we've talked about this journey of Joseph, like that is the intricate key, right? That here he is 17 years old. His brothers already hate him, like from the get-go. His dad is his favorite. They hate him. He told on them. Like if you go back to Genesis 37, he tattled on them. So he's a rat, and they hate him. And then his dad makes him a coat. They hate him even more. Then he has the dreams. They hate him even more to the point where they want to kill him. And I think Joseph, was cocky because, he knew he was a favorite. He probably 17, he had those. But in all the things that happened, he didn't let that dictate his life. And Andy brought up a point I never even thought about because we're about to jump into, we got to talking about where now he's Pharaoh's right-hand man, right? That he said, if you got put in that position and you're now the second most powerful person in the nation, he was like, I think the first thing I would do is call Potiphar and his wife before the court and be like, remember when you lied on me? And I never thought about that, but he didn't. He has no regard for what they did. And, for us to walk this walk, it takes us, we used the analogy last night, taking your socks off. It takes us like letting the stuff go. And again, whether it's unforgiveness or fears or phobias or limitations, to really just say, you know what, okay, Lord, like you put me here. Because you're either in control or you're not. And I think that's a big thing for me, and probably for y'all as well, even for Nicholas, watching from afar, that it's coming to a place where we say, God, you are in control of my life. Because I don't believe, this is y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. You've seen the billboards that say God is in control? I don't believe that fully. I don't believe that God is fully in control, because if he was, the world wouldn't look like it is. We're in a broken world. But he is in control of my life and your life as followers of Jesus, right? So if he's in control, not negating that we can make bad decisions, not negating that we can make mistakes and we can do things wrong, right? But at the end of the day, if he's in control, then he's in control. And I know it sounds redundant, but y'all understand what I'm saying. Like, it's like I've said, I've had to come to a place where I quote Psalm 23 a lot. It's like, the Lord is my shepherd. So you're either my shepherd or you're not. So if I'm going through a hard time, you're either going to get me through it or you're a liar. Right? You're either going to lay me down by green pastures and put me in still waters and supply all my needs, or you're a liar. And we know he's not a liar. We know he's true. And so I think it's coming into this place of really going, okay, Lord, you are fully in control. So what does that look like? I don't know, but it's okay. Maybe it's digging a tunnel. Maybe it's playing golf with French fries. I don't know. I'm all for golf and I love French fries, so I felt the Lord all over that. But I think that that's the reality is that, like, coming to this place and going, okay, Lord, you are in control. And I think the gist of this whole Joseph story is not letting our circumstances dictate who we become. And it's hard, because we've all done it, to some degree. And I know, like, for me, it's funny how our minds, I know it's probably, like I said, I probably have ADD, I don't know. Because I will get fixated on something. I don't know, maybe that's OCD, I'm not sure. But I will have a thought come in, and I will get so fixated on it that I just think through it, and it is something that will probably never, ever even happen. And it's not even always negative. Like I'll just be honest, tell you all what I was thinking about today. I was driving up here. Of course, I've got an hour and a half and just kind of praying and listening to worship, and I was listening to scripture. And then Emma called me. And the Mike Winger video dropped, right? And so my letter's in there. I put my part in there. I've gotten some feedback. It's all been positive directly to me. But there's a lot of people who are like, this is just slander, people who just worship at the footstool of a man. And they're like, oh, this is just slander. And so Emma calls me because somebody did that, and she's like, I'm going after him on Facebook. And I was like, I was like, that's fine. What you're saying is fine. Like, she was running it by me, and I was like, you're bringing out good points, but don't react. We respond to things. But it got me to thinking about what I want to say. And I got fixated on this. Like, I probably spent 10 minutes thinking about it. But I was like, that's 10 minutes that I'm like, why are you wasting your time on that? But I think if we can get fixated on, okay, Lord, you're in control. What do you want to do? How do you want to go? What are you calling us to do? And really getting into that place. And I think that's what brought Joseph to the place where God wanted him to be. But he had to go through the hard stuff in the journey. He had to. And y'all know this. We're all seasoned in life here. When people don't go through the journey, they become dangerous.
Yes.
When people ascend, think about how many people go from, are just spoiled their whole life, or are given a platform when they're not ready for it, and look at what's happened. Todd's a great example at Lifestyle. There was no rearing, because even Paul, the apostle, who was trained in the Word, right? He was a Pharisee among Pharisees. He knew the Word. When he had his encounter with Jesus, after he, has his initial meetings, and his eyes are healed, and he sits for a little bit with them, and he gets ministered to, the first thing he did was he went away to Arabia. He actually went to Mount Sinai and hid away and just spent time with the Lord. And was like, I need you to craft something in me. And I think that the Lord is calling people to be able to be like a Joseph. And I mentioned this it wasn't last week, but last time we talked, 2 weeks ago, that if Joseph at 17 could not have been the man that Pharaoh puts in charge at 30. He wasn't ready for it. He wasn't mature enough. He wasn't calculated enough. So God brought him on a journey. And it seems like a really sucky journey. But the crazy thing about it, again, if he's our shepherd, and we've seen it, when he was at Potiphar's house, what happened to Potiphar's house? Everything was blessed. Joseph was blessed. Like, he wasn't treated like a normal servant or slave. He was blessed. He goes to prison. What happens in prison? He's blessed. Like it says it. The first thing is like the keeper of the prison's like, you're good. Do whatever you want to do. I'm going to go, watch gladiators fight. Whatever they were doing back. This was before gladiators. So, but, the blessings were there. And so God blessed him. He was his shepherd in it, but it was still a hard moment. Still hard. I don't think he was always like, hallelujah, I'm in prison. Thank you, Jesus. I think he was, broken like we all are, dealing with it. But so here he comes to this place. So let's get into it. So Genesis 41, verse 37. This is right around where we left off. I'm going to overlap a little bit. But this is the moment where Pharaoh had the dream. Joseph interprets the dream because cupbearer finally remembers it after 2.5 years. Oh, that guy, yeah. In verse 37, Pharaoh says, so the advice was good in the eyes of Pharaoh. He just interpreted the dream. He said, here's what you should do with all these reserves and how you should do it. And in the eyes of all of Pharaoh's servants, in verse 38, and Pharaoh said to his servants, can we even find such a one as this man, in whom is the Spirit of God? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, inasmuch as God has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall be ruled according to your word. Only in regard to the throne will I be greater than you. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, see, I have set you over all the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh took his signet ring off of his hand and put it on Joseph's hand. And he clothed him in garments of fine linen, and he put a gold chain around his neck. And he had him ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried out before him, bow the knee. So he set him over all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh also said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without your consent, no man may lift his hand or foot in the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zapheth-Paneh, which was his Egyptian name, and he gave him a wife, Asnath, the daughter of Potipharah, which is a great name, the priest of On. And Joseph went out into all the land of Egypt. So that's verse 45. And so, again, I want to read this to you. This is Warren Wiersbe. He has a great commentary. I love this stuff. He said, over a period of 13 years, God enabled Joseph to accomplish some wonderful things. He brought blessings to Potiphar's house and to the people in the prison. He overcame temptation, and because of that, he endured false accusation and great injustice. Joseph was a man of faith who expected God to work. And he was ready and obedient when the call came. But there was one more achievement that in some ways was the greatest of all. He was enabled by God's grace to wipe out the pains and the bad memories of the past and make a new beginning. Like God took, it's like a whole new chapter, right? Or almost like a whole new book, really, in Joseph's life. And isn't that what he's done in us? All of us. You know, you made a joke that your Eiffel Tower, that your trip was BP before prayer, right? You know, I mean, we have those moments of not just our salvation, but in our walk of salvation, where God like takes a door and or a chapter and he closes that. And it's like that, but that book, without that book, we can't have the next book. That's how I look at my life. Like, and I told you, right? Psalm 105:19, the word of the Lord tested Joseph until the day it came to pass. And it's like, we have to have this chapter done before we can move on to the next one, right? Like, you got to have, the fellowship of the ring, so Frodo can get the ring in order to go to the next step, right? And the two towers have to come, and then you get to the return of the king, and these journeys of these stories, right? But it all goes back to the very beginning, where you got the Hobbit. You have, it builds on it, and our lives are like that. It's like and some of the books, we'll be honest, like we want dust on that book. We don't want anybody to see that book. We don't even want to think about that book. But that book helped, that chapter of that book, that novel helped create where we are now. The heartaches, the pains, but the victories. And the problem is so many people live just remembering that book. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, man, I remember back in, 1992, God did this amazing thing in my life. And it's like, it's 2026, man. And you're still living in 1992. And there's a lot of believers like that. There's a lot of people who that's when they got born again, and the Lord used them, and then they got comfortable in their life. And they just kind of did it. And it's not that they're not going to heaven or any of that stuff, but what are we doing? What are we accomplishing? And I know all of us feel the same way. like, if my life is not completely devoted to what he wants to do, then there's no purpose. I love my kids. I love family. I love, life in general. But if it's not all for him, then what does it matter? Because all that stuff fades away, right? And if I'm not living for him, then I can't be a good example to my kids. Like, if we're honest. Like, we can't really reveal him if we're not completely surrendered to him. And I think it is serving him with the French fries, right? That it's the everyday stuff. It's not just like having we get into that stuff where people are like, I prayed for 8 hours today and I did, you can't do that, right? But you can pray without ceasing. Like, you can be throughout the day working, dealing with people, and then in between spending time in prayer and just keeping an attitude. You can do that. But it's not about these I fasted for 27 days. That's great, do that. But you can't fast 27 days every month. What are we doing in the day-to-day? And I think that's what we've got to get to. I heard a preacher say, I don't remember who it was, but they said, if it's not good, it's not done. Right? Like, if it's not good, like, if your life isn't good, it's not done. So if you're going, and for Joseph, being in prison, that wasn't the end of it. There's still more to come. And so we have to hang on to the promises, and even in the dark moments. And it's obviously easier to say than to do, but it's very capable. And so if we look at Joseph, let's look at verse 50. So Joseph, he's 30 years old, and 46 it talks about that. Verse 50 it says, and to Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of the famine came, who Asnath, the daughter of Potipharah, the prince of bore to him. And Joseph called the name of his firstborn Manasseh, for God has made me forget all the toil in all my father's house. Or it made me forgetful. And we're going to look at these names in a second. And then the name of the second son he called Ephraim, for God has caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. So I want you to look at these 2 names because it's important. Because names have value, yes. Right? Names are important. I know when we named all our kids, we looked at what their names meant, and there's value in names. And when you have a name like Hershey, that's valuable, right? Even though I don't get candy for free, but and my kids hate it because every time I meet somebody, I say Hershey, but it's spelled different, and I tell them it's white chocolate. And I tell black people love that, and they're like, yes, but you say it all the time, Dad. I was like, but they love it. They're like, yeah, we know. So anyway, so Manasseh means forgetting. So Joseph didn't forget his family or the events that occurred, but he did forget the pain and the suffering that they caused, and he realized that God meant it for good, right? And we see that later on. So in Genesis chapter 50. He says to his brothers, he's like, you guys didn't do this to me. Let's make it clear. God did this, and it was all for my good. Like, God led me on this path. And I don't know about you all, but I know in my life, there are things that I've gone through that in the moment, I'm like, this is not God. Like, where are you, Lord? I'm pissed off at you. Why hast thou forsaken me, right? I mean, there are these moments. And then you get on the other side of it, and you look back, and you're like, oh, like he was doing this, and he was doing that. And what he did was he took those hard moments, and he made me see, I don't want to be like that. I told y'all, like my first whole stint in ministry, I learned how not to treat people. Because I watched how people got manipulated and beat down and lied to. And I was like, man, I don't want to treat people like that. I want to honor everybody, whether they can do anything for me or not. I don't, there's like a saying, like, I can't remember exactly, but it's basically like, to show who you really are, it's by doing stuff for people who can do nothing for you, right? It's caring for people that they're not going to be able to do anything for you, but you just do it, right? It's bringing water buckets to people that they're never going to be able to repay you, They're never going to be able to, it's not like, yeah, here's 3 burrows that you can take from it. I mean, you're never going to gain anything from it, but you do it because it's just who you are and who he wants you to be. And so he took that, and so looking at the past from that perspective, he attained this victory, right? He attained this victory over the bad memories, and that's what Manasseh did. He's like, I'm forgetting, but I'm not forgetting like it never happened. I'm forgetting going, I'm not going to remember the pain. I'm not going to remember the sorrow. And the crazy thing is, like, if you look at Scripture, there's a couple people that could carry grudges, right? Job could possibly carry a grudge. Joseph could carry a grudge. Not a lot of others, but those are 2 main characters that could definitely carry a grudge. Jesus could carry a grudge, right? But he didn't. He didn't carry that with his brothers because of the way he treated them. Because like grudges are like weeds, and they grow up in our garden, or they're like germs in a body. They just don't belong there. And he knew that. It's kind of like Andy's analogy, taking your socks off, right? It's like, I can be mad, and I can get angry, and I can be vengeful, but what does it benefit me? Because then, like I said in Andy's analogy, I'm just sliding on the marquee. I'm not making my way up to the Lord. And I don't want that. I don't want that. And all the things that all the stuff that I went through with lifestyle, I don't have a grudge towards Todd. Even in my letter that I wrote, and I didn't write it out of anger. I didn't write it out of, I joked a lot. I told him, you ever watch Tombstone? The movie Tombstone, one of the greatest movies ever, right? And so, I even told Mike Winger, I said, I used a Doc Holliday line. I said, make no mistake, it's not revenge I'm after. It's a reckoning. And I do. I want there to be a reckoning. I want there to be a call because I love the body of Christ. Because I love Jesus. And when people are not doing the right thing in his name, I want it to be, and I can do something, I want it to be known. But it wasn't revenge. And just like Joseph, it wasn't revenge he was after, because he's like, I can't, if I want to take revenge, then everything that I went through means nothing. Right? And we're not going to look at the full story today, but it's funny some of the things he does to him. Like he plays with them